Hey guys, Don here for the OSBGL, the Ontario Strategy Battle Game League, and welcome to the second episode in Battle Company Breakdown. This is just a little series that I'm putting together just because I'm loving the battle companies, and we're taking an in-depth look, semi-in-depth look at hopefully quite a few of the factions in the rulebook. Last time out we looked at Isengard, one of the fairly strong evil factions. So this time we're going to go for a good faction, and we're taking a look at Minas Tirith. First we're going to just go over the faction itself, and to start out I'm going to just read over the faction story. Known as the Tower of the Guard, the mighty walled city of Minas Tirith is the bulwark that has kept the endless legions of the Red Eye at bay through the long grueling centuries. Mighty though her ramparts are, the defenders of the White City cannot stand idle behind their fortifications and hope for victory. Instead, at the steward's orders, warbands and patrols must constantly venture forth, hunting down the spies of Mordor and guarding key locations such as river crossing and vantage points. For the warriors of Minas Tirith, selected for such duties, great risk and thrilling adventure beckon. Success will see promotion, glory, and riches. For nothing in the land of Gondor is valued more than the courage and strength required to keep its lands safe. Okay, so let's take a look at this faction and see what it has to offer. The starting warband for this faction consists of 6 warriors of Minas Tirith. 6 seems to be kind of like the average number of warriors that factions start with in battle companies. So you're doing okay there, but certainly not like a large number of guys to start with. And they're not particularly great either. They do have heavy armor, and some have shields, so that's a bonus. But what do you get exactly? You get 2 warriors of Minas Tirith with shield. You get 2 with shield and spear, and you get 2 with bow. So you got a good variety of weapons. You got spears for supporting, you got a couple of bows in there, and you got 4 of them have shields, which is it's quite good. Advancements. So not all of the factions in the game actually offer advancements to their warriors. So this one does, which is good. Because by the time you get to the late campaign, you kind of want to ditch the warriors. It's what you start with, but by the end of the campaign, you probably only want to have 2 or 3 of them left in your warband. So what can they advance into? The warrior of Minas Tirith with shield can become a knight of Minas Tirith with shield. And that is a really good advancement as far as advancement goes. Warrior of Minas Tirith with shield and spear can become a citadel guard with spear. And the warrior of Minas Tirith with bow can become a ranger of Gondor. And of course they all have bows. This warband has an excellent reinforcements table because they have a special chart. And again, not all factions have a special chart. Some of them just have 1 through 6 for reinforcements, and that's it. And I think every one of them, if you roll a 1, it's nothing. So in this case, on a 1 it's nothing, a 2 is a warrior of Minas Tirith with shield, 3 is a warrior of Minas Tirith with spear and shield, a 4 is a warrior of Minas Tirith with bow, 5 is a warrior of Minas Tirith with your choice of weapon, and 6 is roll on the special chart. Now, this warband has an excellent special chart because it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different selections on there, which is excellent. Ranger of Gondor is a 1. 2 will get you a citadel guard with spear. 3 citadel guard with longbow, which is an elven bow. 4 is Guard of the Fountain Court, and it's rare 4, so you can only ever have 4 of those in your army. But that is an excellent, excellent unit. 5 is Knight of Minas Tirith with Shield, and 6 is Choice of Any. So interesting in that they do have cavalry, but only one of the results in the entire reinforcement chart and special chart is for a cavalry model. Lastly, the army specific rule, and it's called For the White City. With a rousing cry, the hero plunges themselves into the fray in defense of Minas Tirith. This model gains a bonus of +1 to its fight value on a turn in which it charges. So for this warband, that is an amazing, amazing special rule, simply because this warband at least starts with all fight 3. And you know, almost all, or actually yes, all, no, Knight of Minas Tirith is fight 3, but all of the other selections are fight 4. So you have to work in this warband to get fight 4. So having a special rule that gives you +1 fight, that's a major bonus. So let's take a quick overview of this warband and talk about some of the pros and cons of Minas Tirith. So this faction, it starts out kind of average. It doesn't really have any obvious strengths, being, you know, strength is 3 across the board, fight is 3 across the board. Like, the only thing they really have going for them early on is heavy armor. So it's not a lot going for them early, but late game is where this warband is really going to come into its own, because they have a lot of war gear available, they have a lot of different units available, they have a really good special chart, good army special rule. Talking more about the pros, one of them I just mentioned, and that is war gear. These guys have like an incredible war gear available to them. In fact, I think the only war gear that they cannot get is a throwing weapon and a two-handed weapon, and even the two-handed weapon is you know, with an asterisk. All 6 models, as I mentioned, have heavy armor, so your best thing that you start out with is high defense. A lot of factions in the game start out with defense 5, and 4 out of 6 of your models here start with defense 6. You've got warrior advancements that are available, so that's a good thing, because a lot of factions, they don't have any warrior advancements available. And it really, I think all factions all should have at least some kind of advancement for their warriors, because it's part of the game. It's part of what makes battle companies. Decent faction special rule for the White City. That's another pro. Okay, what about cons? What does this one have going against us? Well, the big one right away is everything in this faction is strength 3. Even all of the guys on your special chart are strength 3. There's not one model in this faction you can get which starts with strength 4. So that is probably the biggest con that you have here. And what it means is opponents with defense 6 are going to be a serious problem for you, because you're going to need to roll 6s to wound them until you can get some heroes with strength 4, or, you know, get your lances happening and all of that. They also don't have any axes on their models, which for a warband that has all strength 3, you can't pierce, so that's a problem. Same with two-handed weapon. There's no real access to two-handed weapons, so you can't use that strategy to try to boost your chance to wound. Early on, strength 3 is, yes, it's a con, but in battle companies, as I mentioned, most things start at defense 5. So even strength 3, you're only going to need to roll a 5 to wound. So early on, yes, it's a bit of a problem, but you can live with it. It's later on, if everyone starts getting defense 6, and you still have the majority of your warband at strength 3, That's a huge problem. Fight 3, that's another problem. Everything starts with Fight 3. Everything on their normal reinforcement chart is Fight 3. It's not until you can advance into Citadel Guard, or you can roll on your special chart, or Ranger. You can advance into a Ranger, also has Fight 4. So Ranger, Citadel Guard, and Guard of the Fountain Court all are Fight 4. But again, you have to either roll those on the special chart, or you have to advance one of your warriors into that. Only 6 models to start with, so it's kind of the average number. So you're not going to win by outnumbering your opponents. And in fact, another con for this warband is that the majorities of the games that you play throughout your campaign with this warband, you're going to be outnumbered. It can only get the base number of units, which is 15. Plus you can add 3 creatures, so you can get up to 18 models. But that's the low end pretty well for this game. I think, you know, there are some like Isengard from last time. They can only get the 15. They can't add, you know, they can't add like war dogs or wargs or anything like that. But for the most part, a lot of other warbands are going to outnumber you. So get used to playing at a numbers disadvantage. War gear. This faction has access to a ton of war gear. Heavy armor, shield, spear, bow, longbow or elf bow, horse, and lance. No two-handed weapon or throwing weapon. So if you end up with any Rangers of Gondor and they end up becoming a hero in the making, make sure you buy them heavy armor as quickly as possible, because they can actually take it. And make sure you give all of your guys shields where they can as well, your heroes. Because there are some warbands out there that can't even take a shield. You can't get a two-handed weapon on any of your warriors, but heroes that take the path of the warrior, they can be given a two-handed weapon once they've rolled up the deadly strength ability, which is Burly. That's pretty good for this warband, because you have a couple of really good models that are hero models that are armed with two-handed swords. And this gives you a chance to use them, and that's the Knight of the White Tower and Huron the Tall. So there you go, a couple of really good models you can use for your warriors. And it's a way to get a two-handed weapon in a faction that otherwise can't get one. Any heroes that you have that are armed with a bow, make sure you upgrade it as quickly as possible to a longbow, because it's just so much better, strength 3 versus strength 2. And the big one, of course, is the horse. And the horse is going to probably become one of your really early investments for influence in this warband, and we'll discuss a little bit more about that later. Let's roll right into equipment. By far and away, the most important piece of equipment for this warband is the rally horn. Why? Because they have a really, really good special chart and a not very good normal reinforcement chart. So you don't want to roll Warriors of Minas Tirith for your reinforcements. They're okay, but the other choices are all better. So as quickly as you can get a rally horn, the better. I mean, just having a rally horn means you'll never roll a 1 and get nothing, or you won't ever have to keep influence back just to prevent you from rolling a 1. And it makes it easier to get onto the special chart, because it means if you roll a 5, it becomes a 6, and so you're rolling a 5 or a 6 for the special chart. And if you keep a point of influence back, it means on a 4+ you're getting onto the special chart. And that's what you want to do. Every time you roll in the reinforcement table, you want to get onto the special chart with this warband. So get yourself a rally horn. It's a tough one early because it costs 5 influence. So it means you're going to have to go without some early reinforcements. Another good one, and this is true for any warband that has like some decent archery, and that is a Concealing Cloak. So normally you're going to have one of your heroes take the path of the ranger, and that is a really good option for the path of the ranger, especially now that rangers can only get 2 wounds. And as this is a good faction, you have access to probably the best piece of equipment that's available, in my opinion, and that is Elvish Waybread. So it doesn't sound like much. It's 3 influence, or it's worth 3 points on your model, so it's not cheap, but it's insurance for any hero that suffers injury, whether it be, a leg wound, arm wound, old battle wound. If you have Elvish Waybread and you have a wound already, you just use that if you get knocked out, and you automatically take a full recovery. So you get a full recovery, and then getting a full recovery makes you get rid of the existing wound that you have. So keeping a few influence available for your heroes, as soon as they take an injury, you buy them Elvish Waybread, and then if they ever get knocked out again, they automatically take a full recovery, and you heal the injury. Best piece of equipment in the game, especially at late campaign when your heroes are worth a ton of points. Creatures, this warband can actually take a really good one, and it's the hunting dog, and I think everybody knows what it is. You use farmer maggots models, and it adds 3 more models to your warband, which is really important for a warband that can't take more than 15. And they're quicker than your guys. I mean, they're no great shakes when it comes to combats, but having an extra model on the board is always good, and one that can move faster than the rest of your guys is even better. And of course you can take the pack horse, which can come in handy if you have a lot of extra equipment laying around. Makes swapping out equipment a little easier. Okay, just a quick word on developing this warband. Because you have access to so much war gear, and there are a lot of different units you can take, you have a few different ways that you can try to build your warband. I mean, you can try to focus on shooting, but you can still only have 5 guys with bows, so that's probably not going to be great, but certainly you can build a warband where shooting is an important part of it. You can build a shield wall with this warband. You also have spears that can back that up, so you can sort of try to focus on that. And you do have access to mounts and a warrior unit that is a cavalry model. So in addition to your heroes being mounted, you can have other cavalry models mounted. Plus your 3 hunting dogs that can keep up with them. So you could take, a large contingent of mounted models and then a smattering of archery, for example. Or you could go shield wall backed up with archery and a few heroes mounted. There's a few different ways that you can try to build your warband. But for the most part, your warband is going to want to build itself in a certain way, based on the rolls that you're going to get on the main reinforcement chart and on the special chart. And it's only by spending influence and taking a rally horn that you can really try to change what you get. But for the most part, you're going to have kind of a mixed bag of heavy infantry, archery, cavalry, and some spear support. Okay, what about your heroes and the paths that they're going to take? Of the 8 paths in the game, the only one that you cannot take with this warband is the Beast, of course. Also, there is one other path, and that is the Scout, which is a little difficult to get. This faction isn't really Scout friendly, and that's because everything but one model in this faction comes with heavy armor, and Scouts cannot have heavy armor. And the only model in this faction that does not have heavy armor is the Ranger of Gondor, and you don't start with one of those. So if you get a reinforcement that is a Ranger of Gondor, and if that guy gets a hero in the making, and then gets an additional 5 experience, he could choose to become a scout. But for the most part, scout is not really a thing for this warband. I mean, you may end up with 1 by the end, but it's certainly not going to be a focus of how to build the warband. What you definitely want to do is try to get one of your starting heroes, either your leader or one of your 2 sergeants, to take the path of the knight. Well, what that means is that you're going to have to be able to spend influence to buy a horse when one of your heroes gets to 5 XP. So you have to balance that sort of closely. You don't want to forget to buy the horse and have all your guys hit 5 XP and then none of them can take the path of the knight, and you want one of your starting guys to take the path of the knight. So keep that in mind to save some influence for that. Because you have the longbow, or access to the longbow, which is an excellent shooting weapon, you definitely also want to have one of your starting heroes take the path of the Ranger. Rangers are amazing in this game. It's not uncommon for you to like rack up, say, do 4 wounds in a game with a Ranger. It happens fairly regularly, especially when you have access to a good weapon like the longbow. So that's definitely something that you want to do. In fact, any of your heroes that have a bow, upgrade that to a longbow. What else do we have here? So that leaves the warrior, the general, the sorcerer, and the adventurer for your last starting hero. Forget about the adventurer. It's the worst path, I think, my opinion. And especially for a warband that starts with a couple of choices of their warrior models that have bodyguard. And 2 of the things that the adventurer offers are high courage and fearless. And you just really don't need that in this warband. So for your last hero, you're probably going to want to choose between warrior, general, and sorcerer. And I think just because this warband already starts with a fairly decent courage, that warrior is probably the marginal winner there. And it's also because you need your heroes to be doing the killing in this warband, especially early on, because again, everyone's strength 3. So if you have a knight, a ranger, and a warrior, that'll give you some serious killing power. I mean, the general is a good choice always. Sorcerer is good, especially if you can make one of your starting guys a sorcerer so they advance quickly. I would just say myself that the warrior is a marginal winner, but if you really want to have a sorcerer to start out with, then go for the sorcerer. You can only get 1 sorcerer, so along the way make sure you do grab a sorcerer. And in this warband, they can have heavy armor and a shield, which is awesome. You also want to make sure you pay attention to the paths in this warband that can get up to strength 4. So warrior, scout, adventurer, general, and knight all will allow you to get up to strength 4, which is really important again for this warband. These are the guys that are going to be doing the killing for your warband. Okay, what about tactics? And when I say tactics, I'm not so much talking about tactics on the tabletop. It's more of your tactics on building your warband, with maybe sort of a little bit of a nod to, on the table stuff. The early game for this faction is to get a horse. Get 1 horse at least for your knight early on. And in fact, buying horses is a good investment for heroes, because in this version of battle companies, your horses can't die. If your hero gets knocked out or whatever, your horse always comes back. It's never injured. So if your guy gets killed and gone, your horse is gone. If your guy is injured, the horse, of course, is not available. But otherwise, your horse is always available once you buy it. Also, I mentioned this before in the equipment section, get the rally horn. It's so important early on to be rolling on the special chart, as that's where all the good units are and the fight for units are there, and you need that as quickly as you can get it. You're gonna be outnumbered in a lot of games, so get used to sort of fighting on the back foot. It's gonna happen, so be prepared for that. This faction is gonna play, it's got no overwhelming sort of grand strategy the way that the warband is gonna come together. It's a combination of cavalry, heavy infantry, and archery. So you really need to adjust your play style depending on the mission and the opponent that you're facing. So mid-campaign, after you've made the investment in paying for some of those expensive pieces of equipment and horses and stuff like that, your focus is going to be on adding members to your warband mid-campaign. You're going to try to want to push yourself up to 15 and do it as quickly as possible, and hopefully you'll have the rally horn by now, and so when you're adding your units, they're going to be better quality. And unless you want to buy a hunting dog just for the fun of it, because you can do that in this game, save the hunting dogs until the end. Like, having one certainly is, it's not going to be a deterrent, but you're spending 3 influence to get a hunting dog. If you have a rally horn, you're far better off to roll on the reinforcement chart, because if you can get on the special table, it's far better than a hunting dog. But once you do get to 15, and hopefully that'll sort of be mid-campaign, sort of the 8 to maybe 12 games kind of area, you'll be in the area of 15 models. So late campaign for this faction, and we're talking about a point at which you've gotten yourself up to 15 models, and hopefully you've got 3 hunting dogs or maybe 2 and a pack horse. You have to keep some influence in reserve, like a few points, because you want quality. You don't have quantity in this warband, but you do have access to quality. So every time you're going to roll for a reinforcement, and you may even have to kick somebody out of your warband to do it. If you have a warrior of Minas Tirith hanging around, kick him out of your warband, roll for a reinforcement, and keep enough influence so that you're going to roll on the special chart and get something better than a warrior of Minas Tirith. Late campaign, that's what you're after. You want to make sure that you don't have any more warriors of Minas Tirith in your warband. You want all of the quality models. It's not going to kill you if you have a few warriors of Minas Tirith, but that's what you want to spend your money on. And I'm talking from a competitive point of view here. If you want to have warriors of Minas Tirith to enjoy the theme of that, then by all means go for that. Early on in games, take out the enemy horses. It's a standard tactic in the game, but it's worth mentioning because you have longbows or elf bows. So make use of them. Make sure that you dismount your opponent's heroes, especially the heroes. I mentioned before that this faction is going to play as kind of like a hybrid faction. Cavalry, infantry, archery tactics are all there, but you have to remember that this faction, it's not the best at any of those tactics. Regardless of what we're talking about, where you're talking cavalry, they're not the best. Infantry, they're not the best. Archery, they're not the best. But they have all of it. So you have to adjust your play style and use all of those tactics sorted together. Okay, let's summarize what we've found out about Minas Tirith. And at this point, I like to sort of give the warband a score out of 5, and that's both for competitive side of gaming and for the fun side, and how enjoyable is this faction to play, because certainly some are far more enjoyable than others to play. And you know, it's not a precise score, it's just kind of my opinion. So what do we know about this faction? It's got warrior advancements, so that's really good thing to have in a game about like experience and building your war bands. It's got a really good special chart for your reinforcements, and again, like a lot of factions, they don't have a special chart at all, and this one has a really good special chart. The starting force for this warband is pretty lackluster. It's very, very average. So nothing to write home about there. But the faction does have an excellent selection of war gear. In fact, they have access to almost everything other than throwing weapons, two-handed weapons, I think are the only things they can't get. So from a competitive standpoint, what would I give this faction? Well, I would give it a 5 out of 5 for competitive, but there's an asterisk besides that 5. And it's only a 5 out of 5 if you stick with it until late campaign. Late campaign is where this faction comes into its own. It's not going to be a 5 out of 5 for competitive in early or mid. But if you can hang in there and get your warband up to 15 members and still have your 3 starting heroes, this is a top tier warband for competitive play. 5 out of 5. What about for just sheer enjoyment, fun? What would I score this? Well, you may think I would give it a 5 out of 5 because of all the pros that I've listed, but I wouldn't. I would only give this a 4 out of 5. And like everyone else may consider this a 5 out of 5, but I just consider it a 4. It's just my personal opinion. And that is because I find this faction kind of boring. And I don't know why. I think it's just because this faction is kind of like the vanilla faction of Middle-earth strategy battle game. It's kind of if you play 40k, it's the Ultramarines of Middle-earth strategy battle game. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's perfectly good faction. But I don't know, it just doesn't grab me where I live. So I gotta give this a 4 out of 5. Okay guys, well that's it for this episode of Battle Company Breakdown. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you thought it was good or terrible. Let me know if I missed anything. Is there something that I should be talking about for this warband or for all warbands? Like, you know, what is a really good opponent for them to play, or what's like a really bad mission? You know, those are things I could talk about, I guess. And if you want to see me talk about or cover another faction, like a specific one, let me know what it is. Anyway guys, until the next video, get your toy soldiers out and come and play some battle companies with us at the OSBGL. Thanks for watching guys.